that I care about and love, but wait. Maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
Hi, beautiful people. If you've never been in here before, my name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. I come on, I talk to people that are doing things to empower the lives of others. I do that by sharing their story. And I have this podcast. So this video podcast is actually started on audio only in July 2018. Actually, oh, snap. Yo, next week's going to be my anniversary. Let me see something real quick. Yeah, like next week's gonna be 2 years. Amazing. July 2nd. Man, it came fast. July 2nd, 2018. I decided to start this podcast, and so it's gonna be 2 years. That's amazing. So initially it was audio, pandemic started, then I decided I was going to bring the people on video. And so essentially, people are just able to watch me do what I was already doing since July 2018. And it's been amazing. I enjoy it. We're streaming everywhere. We're in over 100 countries, and people are sharing and people are liking the content. So if you ever wanted to learn more about me, you can go to celestetherapist.com. Before we get started, really quick, I just want to let you know about this free wellness assessment that I have. All it is just a 10-minute video where I go through each section of this will: spiritual, emotional, intellectual, physical, social, environmental, and financial. These are different areas of our lives that we can be affected by. And I talk about the importance of really like breaking them down and not just getting stuck. A lot of times we just kind of get stuck and we don't really know how to climb out of what we're feeling. And so we just kind of stay stuck. Believe it or not, you can get comfortably uncomfortable with how you are feeling. And, you just kind of get used to it. And so I just, I'm here to offer hope and let you know, like, there's other ways out. Thank you, AP. So I'm going to bring on my special guest, who I guess he's not a guest. I feel like when people come on, what do they say? When you come to the house more than once, you're not a guest, right? Isn't that what people say?
Something like that.
Something like that. But for people that are new to me, can you introduce yourself to my audience?
I am Jermaine Morris. I work as a radio host a podcast. I also work as a coach and consultant based around self-awareness and personal development. And come to the Celeste, the therapist podcast.
Jermaine, what you say? I didn't hear what you said. The last part, your thing broke up a little bit.
Oh, I just said that I'm always a happy guest to come to the Celeste, the therapist podcast.
You are.
I am. My favorite people in mental health.
Oh, you're so kind. So this is Jermaine's third time on here, and I enjoy when he comes on. So I asked him if he can. Hey Todd, I asked him if he could come on a monthly basis, and he said yes. So I'm grateful to you for making space.
This is fun. This is
because people enjoy hearing from you. So one of the things that Jermaine does is that he hosts his own show, and every year he has a theme. Last year's theme was Know Thyself.
No.
What's the theme for this year?
So this year, for the 12 months, the basis of it is Leave No Dream Behind. So every year I was kind of labeled as a campaign. So what's the campaign wrong? So it's Leave No Dream Behind. So all those things that we had plans to put in fruition for this year, everybody remembers that, people were trying to hurry up and get out of 2019. Like, if people remember correctly, October, November, everybody was ready to just a wrap on 19. I can't wait for 2020. New year, new me. My whole life gonna turn around.
But Jermaine, 2020 is supposed to be the year of vision. I felt like the energy around 2020 at the beginning was like way better than any other year.
Oh no, I always say 2020 is hindsight, because this year everybody's looking back to a better year. This is this 2020, straight hindsight. Everybody's
It's
thinking about
trash.
96. They missing 04, 2012 dreams. Like it's all hindsight so far. I knew this year was all downhill after Kobe died.
I know.
I knew it was all. This year was a wrap when we lost Kobe. I was just.
It was like the beginning of. Oh my goodness! Like wow, you're right.
Kobe hit me harder than COVID.
Yeah,
Kobe
that
hit me harder than COVID.
was crazy. So you have this campaign and you talk about. He said, now we want to go back to 2019.
Yeah, exactly.
like right now, Todd, we want to go back like right now.
Like, you remember 2019? All the people that died, all the stuff that was going on. Everybody was like, this is the worst year ever. 2020 was like, hold up.
I got something for you, 2020.
Yeah, I got something for you.
So, sorry, go ahead. I decided because you're right about that. So then go ahead.
So leave no dream behind. And so when we come into this year, a lot of times we have, some people call them New Year's resolutions. Some people have a plan. Some people break it up into quarters, halves, things they want to get accomplished during the course of the year. And then something happens and they abandon the plan. Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't look like we're going to make it on pace, not going to make it on schedule. What was supposed to happen in January was supposed to set up February, supposed to set up March. Well, whatever was supposed to happen in February didn't happen. So we just abort. Like we just call it a wrap and I'll try again later. So leave no dream behind means it's based in, I always start off with personal development, self-awareness, assess where you are, establish where it is that you want to go, and then implement the steps to bridge that gap. Mm-hmm. So as long as you know where you are, who you are, what you're working with, and you've got an established goal, if things start to go wrong, all that means is we're changing the steps of implementation, not abandoning the dream that was the established goal. So for too many of us, if the goal was we were all supposed to ride together in this car at 6, so-and-so can't go anymore, so none of us go. Well, can we get another car? Can I carpool with so-and-so? Can I leave tomorrow and still be all right? Like the leave no dream behind is going to calling audibles, going to a plan. You're not going from plan A to plan B to plan C. You're going the procedures of plan A may change. So we're not just abandoning what our goals were. We're not just throwing out the plan because it's not going according to schedule. What new tools, what new direction, what new implementations need to happen that we still reach our goal? So we're leaving no dreams behind this year.
So one of the things that you touched on, whether we're talking about our dreams or some goals that we have, something happens and then it's like we forget about it. What do you think? Why do you think that is? Why do you think we forget about the goals that we have or the dreams that we have when something happens?
Well, because a lot of us tie our goals to the way that we do them. So if it's, I need you to go from here to there. We almost like you ever see when they put those footprints on the floor to teach people how to dance? Like you step here, step there, step, and that's the cha-cha slide on. So a lot of us, if we can't fit those footsteps, we just stop. Like if we can't go at this time this way, we just don't go. You ever had somebody where the plane got canceled or delayed and they just don't even want to go on the trip anymore?
Right, because they're pissed.
It just it's not going according to plan. So people just abandon it because in their mind they have specific steps tied to the goal. And if anything happens with those steps, then they abandon the goal.
Right.
The goal, the thing is that where am I at now and where am I trying to get to? How I get there is not the important part. And I think too many people are married to that particular process. I say respect the process, but the process is the steps of implementation, not the process of which individual step you take.
Yes.
And so it's about not being married to that part of it.
Yes.
And I think too many people are hung up on that part of the implementation. And if anything derails the steps that are in their brain, then they just break team and just let the dream die.
Well, so, one of the things it feels like a common theme I've been saying to my clients all week is remember the goal.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we get stuck in what happens. One of the things that Todd is saying is adapting. And I think that's an important word. But how is it that people can work on adapting? Because what you're talking about, I see play out time and time again. And I think you're absolutely right. The problem is that we're not going back to the drawing board. But I think if we can remember why we are doing what we're doing, it'd be easier to adapt. If we were going out to a club, we had our mind set on partying and drinking for the night, and so and so said they're not coming. We're gonna adapt, and we're gonna call an Uber, right? We're gonna call somebody else. But when it comes, and that's just something to have fun. But when it comes to like living and not just surviving, that's the part I feel like we don't know how to adapt with. What do you think that is?
I believe something I call, you have to have Wile E. Coyote conviction.
What's that?
Okay, so do you remember the Warner Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner?
Oh, yes.
Okay, Wile E. Coyote spent every waking moment with every product that ever came from Acme, and nothing worked. But every day he went right back to it because he knew where he was and he knew what his goal was. So he tried every variation of implementation to reach his goal.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when it comes to having that mission and trying to move forward, it's got to have like that Wile E. Coyote type conviction. The catapult didn't work. Okay, what about the rocket skates? Okay, not the rocket skates. Okay, we gonna parachute off. Okay, that don't work. We just gonna keep working this out because the goal is where we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And so the rocket skates didn't work. It doesn't mean give up on the Roadrunner. Okay, we're gonna try this. If that didn't work, okay, we'll try this. If this is, you know what I mean? And so I just think that too many of us, we live with so much regret at the end of this road. I always say like there's real world and there's book. So the terminology and all this stuff is great. I always like to look at stuff like in real life scenarios. So, and you've been around me a few times, know that I like to jump around and I got my stories I tell. So when I was younger, I used to be a waiter and a busboy in this senior living center. So the whole place is all senior citizens and they all live there. And they used to come down and have 2 meals a day there. And so I would sit there and there was not that many men because all these women outlived their husbands, but there was a half dozen men there, you know, that were while they were alive. And almost without a doubt, every guy that you ever talked to, when you asked him about his life, because these were men in their 80s and some of them 90s, as much as they appreciated what they'd accomplished and appreciated what they'd done, they always started off with the same 2 words. And it was, I wish.
Dang.
I wish I had spent more time with my kids. I wish I'd had tried harder. And they're all regret filled. Even though there's an appreciation for life and appreciation what's there, a lot of them left a lot of dreams on the table. And so as I was young, I was like 19, 20 when I worked there. And then that kind of stuck in my brain about it's okay to make a decision and change your mind. You know, I think because that's one, I think people get confused. Like if you're single and you have these goals and aspirations that you created in your single mind, now you get with somebody and now you started with a plan that was about now you have a life that is us. So that can change.
Say you get with somebody because you cut out a little bit. So you said you're single, then you get with somebody.
Yeah. So if you had a whole plan for your life as a single entity, a single individual, and then you get into a relationship and that turns into a marriage.
Yeah.
For you to change the goal is not abandoning your dream because you're not even the same person anymore.
Right.
And then if you introduce children, when you were single by yourself, you may have wanted to be CEO of the company. You want to take over the world. Now you got 3 babies. You just want to go to the park and play catch and that's not leaving a dream behind.
That's not leaving a dream behind. Right. Yep. Yeah.
That's where that's a legitimate change. Like you're just, okay, I'm on to something new now. I'm doing something different. But if you were somebody who I was trying to reach this goal and you kept hitting a wall or hitting adversity, so you just said, forget it, that's different.
Todd wants to know, what about the women in the place? Did they say the same things? Do you remember them saying the same things?
Different. So they kind of had different conversations because, so you got to remember, these are the late 90s, early 2000s, late 90s. So from their era, they didn't have a lot of they lived a lot.
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
The
it was
goal was
different.
different.
Yes.
A lot of stay-at-home wives, a
Right.
lot of like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
wouldn't, you know,
Yeah,
dudes
that makes
work
sense.
all day, all the time, you know, and were never home. The women was the opposite. Most of them were home all the time of that generation. Yeah, so
That
they
makes
didn't
a lot of sense.
yeah, they didn't have the same conversation.
Now, one of the things that the steps that you talk about that is going to take for us to be able to, you know, leave no dream behind is assessing where we are. Talk to people a little bit about how challenging that can be, especially if you're not where you expect it to be.
Okay, so the expectation to kill you.
Yeah, I know.
Wherever you believe that you words like supposed, I'm supposed to be here. Should is a horrible word. Should land is a very highly populated place of a bunch of miserable people. Should land. Self-awareness, self-assessment is simply a judgment-free look at where are you standing. And a lot of times it has to be seen as such. Not in juxtaposing where your sister is at for the same age or the best friend you graduated high school with, or just simply where am I standing right now? What do I have? What am I working with? And so most people in my thought process fail to reach their dreams and fail to find those fulfillments due to an inability to properly self-assess. Most people don't know who they are. They don't know their true strengths, and they don't know the areas that they need to work on. They have a thought in their brain, sometimes one they got on their own, sometimes one they got from somebody else, and they just stay married to it. And there's not a place of self-reflection and identification. That's where one of the things we're talking about lately on the talks is triple darkness. And triple darkness is the theory of you don't know that you don't know that you don't know.
So true.
And everybody has it. Like there was a quote that says that there are the known knowns. Then there's the known unknowns. You're aware of what you don't know. Then there's the unknown unknowns. The stuff that you don't know, that you don't even know you don't know. That's the area of triple darkness. We all have it. They're blind spots. To our behavior, to how we process information, how we come across from other people, all that sort of stuff. So the goal is to try to minimize that blind spot area. And that comes from really examining us, the real us. Not the ones that we call home and tell our mama. Not the ones that we pose for the gram. Not the ones that we present to the world. Have that real conversation with nobody but yourself or who you pray to, but have that real actualization of who we are as an individual. This is where I'm at. I'm not supposed to be higher in the company because I really didn't try that hard. I'm not supposed to be gone to a better college because really I didn't care about my grades like that. I'm not supposed to be in a great marriage because I know I picked people with red flags like a NASCAR race and I chose to go out with them anyway. So when we have a real world assessment of who we are, true self-awareness, then move forward from there.
Yes, that's true. One of the things I say is that we live with this mask, right? And this mask it consists of what society says, our upbringing, and our expectations, and it's all glued together with like sticking it out. And if we can just really start to like those kind of three things is kind of essentially what you're talking about. If we can just start to break that down and not no longer stick it out and get to the point of self-assessment and understanding who we are, I feel like things will start to look different because we no longer have to pretend. We can actually be our authentic selves.
Oh yeah. Like I'm the weird one sometimes when with my family. Like there's a way that we came up. There's a way that we're supposed to act and supposed to be. I started breaking that stuff years ago because I wasn't happy. Like there was ways that I was quote unquote supposed to be, and I tried to do things in that mold. And so I had created a persona amongst people that had ultimately painted myself into a corner. There were ways that Jermaine doesn't talk. There's ways that Jermaine doesn't behave. And I painted myself into this persona and image, and I found myself unhappy. And it was like, because I'm surrounded by people who are basing their relationship with me off the person that I presented, and that's not the person that I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I then had to say, we just gonna tear down all that fake stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you still ride it out with me, if you still rock with me, we cool. But if you don't want to rock and you want to roll, I'm cool with that too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my mom looks at me crazy because I jump out of airplanes, and that I like, certain theater stuff, and that I go take trips to here or there, or I do whatever stuff. I do what interests me.
Mm-hmm.
I try to live it like how I want to live, and I make better decisions because I'm not making decisions based upon how.
Oh, he cut out.
Decisions based upon how the result comes across to other people. So I think that when we're genuine who we are and we have a real moment with ourselves, when you start making decisions from your genuine self, it eliminates the regret because you can live with it. When you make a decision based on what you think somebody else wanted you to do, not only do you resent the other person for creating that narrative in your brain, but then you hate yourself for following through with it. And that becomes a lot of inner turmoil, inner confliction, resentment, depression, anxiety. But when you can just say, this is me, and I'm willing to roll the dice with however this play out, you can just make a mistake or make a decision and keep it moving. But that starts with being true to who we are, but first off, knowing who we are.
Yeah, and that process, even though like we're talking about it and saying like doing this will allow like freedom and authenticity, I think the process of going against the grain will make you feel a little bit dysfunctional because everybody else is doing it a certain way. And yeah, it can, especially in family dynamics, especially if it's toxic, there's trauma and everybody's just used to feeding off of each other's toxicity or trauma. That's their norm, right? And so like you're like, no, I want to be healthy, I want to be authentic. You doing that will make you feel like the oddball, but in fact, it'll give you the freedom and the peace and the authenticity that you're looking for.
Yeah, and sometimes we can say things that, okay, loving your family, loving your friends, loving your neighborhood, community, loving the people you've known your whole life, and recognizing some bad information or some negative behaviors, these are not like mutually exclusive. Like I can love you wholeheartedly and still understand you taught me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can love you for who you are, but understand I don't want to follow in these steps.
Yeah.
Like I think we attach like how we feel about the person to maybe things that the person does. And so I think it was great. My mama gave me great advice as a kid. She used to always say when it came to like negative stuff, she would say, don't hate the person, hate the things they do.
Yeah.
Was her philosophy.
Yeah.
She said, it's not the person you don't like, it's the stuff that they're doing. And so that message was drilled into, I could separate the person from the behavior.
That's good.
And so I can look at you and say, I love you for who you are, all the great things. But some of the stuff you doing taught me, messages you're saying, friends, stuff that y'all on, whatever, I don't rock with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when we're willing to be ourselves, whatever that looks like, even if it's unpopular amongst your group, you find acting like you're somebody you're not causes more problems than being yourself.
It really does.
You're not happy, you get resentful, you get an attitude, you're quick to argue, you don't like being around them, they feel the energy, they don't like being around you. People can tell when you're being fake, people can tell when you're just like it creates more problems. And so when we say to start where we are, say this is what my goal is. If you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a garbage man, if you want to be a rodeo clown, look, there's folks out there with dreams of being a rodeo clown, which I'm sure is not their mama's dream for them.
Mm-hmm.
But they love going to work every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like you figure out what it is that you want to do that's going to bring you happiness and bring you peace. Then the mate you choose will come from a healthy place that's of a person who's happy and peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship the two of you have together will be one of happiness and peace. The children you bring up in that environment, as opposed to you hate the job you go to, you're inauthentic at all times, except for when you're away from your family.
Yeah.
Because you get to be yourself when you take that 2 hours to go to the bar by yourself before you come home. That's when you get to be you. Then you get in the driveway and sigh, you realize you got to go to deal with. Oh, it's not coincidence that folks take 2 hours to drive home when it takes 20 minutes to get there. let me just, I got to go in here, game face, and let's go. You know, when you got to do all that, that's when you miss the dream.
Yeah.
That's when you have the resentment. That's when you have the regret, because you spent all this time and energy to perpetrate a fraud.
And the crazy thing is that, you know, like maybe growing up, you could have seen that kind of thing. You're like, that's not going to be me. But people get comfortably uncomfortable living that lifestyle. And I always say, like, we don't have 9 lives. We only have one. But unfortunately, we don't treat ourselves well. And then we just get comfortably uncomfortable. I said, when I was younger, I used to have like a lot of back pain. I remember going to the doctor one time and they gave me a muscle relaxer. They didn't know what was going on. Like I grew up in a lot of trauma, but as an adult, when I would get overwhelmed and stressed, I realized my back would hurt. And so I realized that the back pain was related to stress and trauma. Yeah. But what happens with us is that we get these back pains, we get these different ailments. And instead of us checking in with ourselves or trying to like rework the plan or figure out what's going on, we'll just readjust our body and start walking this way to accommodate the pain, right?
Yeah.
And so like what you're saying in regards to, you know, like getting to the house and taking a deep sigh and resenting people, it doesn't have to be that way because you hold the keys.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for too many of us, you're, as much as society says it want be an individual, be yourself, it's not designed that way.
Right.
And so benchmarks of if you graduated college or not, if you're married with kids or not.
Talk about some benchmarks, please.
How old you were when you got married, if you have kids or not,
right?
How many times you've been married. All these things are you're seen as less than a failure. All these things you're socially looked at differently. You know, you could be single with no kids, never been married, living your best life, but you will be looked down upon to your sibling who's been married for 10 years with 2 or 3 kids to a quote unquote good man or a good woman. You know, you like, yeah, but I'm having an amazing time. Like I'm doing it. Yeah, but you ain't got no husband though. You ain't got no wife though. You know, and like all these, you know, quote unquote benchmarks of success. And we have all these things that try to put us into to compete and to be labeled as for what's supposed to make us happy. So we have people who start doing things to have these qualifying benchmarks, but are not actually what makes them happy.
No.
They don't care about buying a car. Like, okay, so I was checking back to real life. I was having a conversation with some of my family who was a little bit older, and they couldn't, like, they were trying to gauge how successful someone was. Like, well, did they buy a house yet? Like, they don't care about buying a house. Like, to them, some of these young people, the idea of being strapped to 6-figure debt was like, no. And they're like, well, they lease a car instead of buying it. That's stupid. Why are you paying all that much money for a car? But to them, their idea is, I don't want to drive a car that's 10 years old.
Right.
I don't want to drive a car that's older than 3 years. So leasing for me is perfect. But you're paying more money. Yeah, but I don't want a 7-year-old car. Like, just the thought process is different. And there will be people who will try to just strong arm you into their belief system to think that, no, you need to buy that car. No, you need to get this house. No, you need to be married. No, you need to have these kids. No, you need to go to college. No, you need to have all these things. Unless this person is on your payroll, meaning they got to stay with you if it don't work out, or you sending them money every month. If that's the case, if you're paying their bills for them, then your input is valid. But if these are individuals who are fully functioning in the world, living their life, doing it how they want to do it, leave these people alone. And if you're an individual who wants to live your life, that's when you start doing these checks. Am I self-sufficient? Am I taking care of myself? Am I happy? Why am I not happy? What environment am I in? Like so when I do with the coaching and consultations, where we give you the assessment test and we start looking at your strengths, your behavioral hierarchy, your natural versus adaptive preferences to dealing with things, we look at your ideal environment. There's an environment that is perfect for you that ties in to your natural traits that bring out your best you. How often are you in an opportunity to tap into your best you? And how often are you in an environment that brings that out? If you don't get to use these great traits, like if your strength is in speaking to people, but you got a job where you work in a cubicle in the basement by yourself, you don't get to bring out your best qualities. If your best environment is interacting with others, but they got you alone. So now you don't get to speak to people, which is your strength and your behavior, and you're not around people, which is your ideal environment. No wonder you have anxiety going to this job.
Right.
So if you start with the self-awareness, the self-assessment, establish where you really are, what you're really working with, and don't look at it under the premise of good or bad. Just look at it as is.
No judgment.
This is it. Like if you say good or bad, right or wrong, it's like stepping on a scale. If the number is what the number is, how you feel about it is up to you. But we're just starting with the number. Look at where you're at. Where do you want to get to? If the number on the scale isn't what you want it to look like, what do you want it to look like? Okay, now let's put the steps in there to get you to the number that you'll be happy with. I'm just talking.
No. No, that's good. And so we get the steps to where we want to get to. Like we write it down, we make it plain. We are intentional about it, because one thing that I say is that we can identify as a victim. We can identify as somebody that never completes anything. Like our body can get used to that identity of never finishing, never quitting. So then like I start working with Jermaine. Me and Jermaine works together. He's trying to help me get on my A game. My body is going to reject what Jermaine is trying to get me to do, because that means that I am no longer who I thought I was. Right. And so as you are like this process that Jermaine is talking about, as you're doing it, understand that it's going to come with some resistance because you're losing your identity. And it's like, well, why would I identify with a quitter or this or that? It's that would be the definition of insanity, but it's not a conscious thing, right? It's not a conscious thing that we're intentionally doing. It's very much in our subconscious. And I think that if we can work on when the assessing part brings that unconscious to our conscious, and it becomes more real. So like understand there's definitely going to be some resistance in this process.
Yeah, and there's things like some of the people I work with say they have difficulty with decision making. Procrastinators it takes forever to make a decision. Like we'll do something to where we do an exercise where for certain periods of time, certain numbers a day, they have to do timed activities. You know, like you ever play chess and you only have so many time to make a play. Stuff along that line that's timed. You have to make a decision one way or another in 5 seconds. 10 seconds. It's not a question of if it's right or wrong. You just need to get in the habit of training yourself to make quicker decisions. Like there's things to do to where you can retrain your brain, because you may have had 20, 30, 40, 50 years of a certain thought process. It's not just going light switch and shift over to the new way. So it's going to take a process. And so you may have to trick yourself, like doing other things to help build that up. But the important part is, like I said, Wile E. Coyote-like conviction. You really have to be, like I said, committed to the goal. And I think something that people like, something you said, like I thought was interesting. They always say that Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. But Webster's definition of persistence is continuing in the same course of action, regardless of previous failures or outcomes. So if you're looking at something, somebody can sit there and say that, okay, well, this is insanity because you keep doing the other thing. But their mind is wired to think I'm just being persistent. So the thing looks at is if it's persistence as opposed to insanity, then you should be able to look at, if you are the same and the goal is the same, then I should be able to tweak the steps of implementation and work that out without that being an issue.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like how can I try to do these things different? If you believe that I'm just trying really hard. Right. Okay, then you should be down for new ways to try to do it. I'm not trying to get you off the goal. I'm just trying to look at the steps for you to get there.
Yes.
And so that's how sometimes you have to work with people, because people tell them, you're just crazy. That's not going to work. You've been trying for 5 years. And but I watched these people, and on year 7 is when it broke. Year 10 when it was broke. Okay, well, we're going to stay on the goal. Maybe look at a slightly different way of getting there.
Yes. I think that's true. And if you're somebody that is feeling like this is speaking to you, I say, don't let this be the last time you start, your process. Don't let this be like a feel good podcast and then you go about your way. Like, what kind of things do you tell people to do, if they're feeling like motivated to change or they're feeling like things are resonating with them?
So if they're not already started and then they just hear something and they want to get started, then that's when you move in. Because if this is not something that is normal for you,
right,
and all of a sudden the spirit has moved you, if all of a sudden, you got that feeling, that energy, then that's when you get up and do something. Like do it then. Because if you're not somebody who normally does that, what's going to happen is that you're going to get that wave of emotion. You're not going to move on it. The wave is going to subside, and then you're going to settle back to where you are. Yeah. So if you don't have the habit of moving, the idea should be break the way you've been doing it, because that's where the problem, the steps is where the issue is. So if all of a sudden your normal way is, I'm just going to wait and I'm going to start it tomorrow, that's your go-to, then no, that's not what we do today. If your normal go-to is I'm starting in the morning, no, then we start tonight. If your normal go-to is I do that for the weekends. Now you may need to start this on Tuesday. I'm like, you need to break up something in that process to get started. And I highly suggest to people who have those issues, get an accountability partner.
Yes.
And somebody who's not going to let you slide. And then I recommend putting some skin in the game. And so what I mean by that is a partner of mine, he has this group and they're all committed to working out 3 times a week. If you don't make your 3 days a week workout, you owe $25 to the pot.
Dang.
And so somebody made a one-time deal that may be a big, okay, I didn't get it this week. $50, okay. $75, $100. Like after a while, you start seeing like, and then there's another group that has accountability. They use 50s. Like something that you legitimately are going to care about losing.
Yeah.
And then you've got somebody who's almost waiting for you to fail. Like, go out to the club this week. So why don't you go ahead and stay home with them cookies? Like you just like you want to get an accountability partner who's not going to let you slide, who's not going to let you who's going to hold you accountable to the agreements that you make. Because that's for some people, they're emotional roller coasters.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
When the mood hits them and they're firing on all cylinders, they're great. But when the tide settles and they're unmotivated, you can't get them to do nothing. So those are the times when they need somebody that's like, hey, I thought we was going to go walking today. I don't even feel like it. Well, I'm already on my way, so lace your Nikes up. Right. I thought we was going to work on the business plan. I was going to wait till the morning. Nah, send me 2 pages before we go to bed tonight. Like somebody who would challenge you to the things that you say you want to do, because that consistency and accountability has not been in your implementation.
Right.
The goal is changing and altering the steps of implementation. We're not leaving the dream behind. We're just looking at the steps to get there.
Yes. And when you said something that you're willing to lose, I really wish, at this stage in my life, for me, it's that analogy or that thing you talked about when you talk to the guys in a nursing home who says like, I wish this or I wish that. For me, that's what it is for me now. I continue to move forward in the manner that I do because I don't want to lose like my purpose or I don't want to stop my goal. Like that's important. It wasn't always like that, but I'm at a stage in my life where that's what I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose myself in the process. I don't want to lose my purpose. And so maybe it starts off with, this $25 pot or whatever else as you're putting the skin in the game. But, hopefully it can be that you enjoy the process and you enjoy what it feels like and you enjoy that peace and you enjoy that authenticity. And then that becomes your why. That becomes, right. Is that fair?
Yeah, your why is crucial because if it's something flimsy, if your thing is, I just want to make money, that's not going to be a very sustainable why.
Yeah.
Unless there's something you intended to do with it. Like if you're saying, I'm trying to buy this high-rise building, I'm trying to buy the Raiders, I'm trying to buy, like there's something attached to getting money. But if it's the idea of getting money, that's not a very, you can let that go.
Right.
if it's got to be something that you're okay. So I know we talking. I know how we on time.
Go ahead, finish.
Okay.
Yeah, we could talk all day.
Yeah, that's why I was making sure. I was like, see, every time I got him, we run long. And so sometimes it's challenging people when we talk and people address their why. Sometimes you have to have that real world conversation because people will say, "Man, I'm doing this for my family." Really? Like really? So let's look at what you're doing. And let's look at how you're moving. Is what you're doing truly conducive to the betterment of your family? And a lot more often than not, too many times the answer comes like no. Like people are doing things they'll use under the premise of I'm doing this for my family.
Well, let's use that example because let's just use the example of working. Like I'm working really hard for my family. Is it fair to say sometimes initially people that is their why, and then they get lost in the sauce, so they lose focus and they stop spending time with their family? Let's just use that for an example. Is that fair to say?
So there are people who say that I'm doing this for my family, and that may be the initial reason they got started.
Right.
But there's times where what they're doing is literally what's tearing their family apart.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, so what is really the reason? And you'll start finding is that some of them it was ego. Some of them shot for 100 yards and got 400. Like some of them didn't aim as high as they reached. Mm-hmm. And then they started having selfish aspirations. Mm-hmm. I only got a job here because I heard it got benefits. I didn't realize I could make this, and this. And they're trying to say I can get to there and I can get to there. Okay, well, now you're traveling 30 weeks out of the year. When you come home, you don't really want to be bothered. You're this, that, whatever. Okay, great. Your kids go to a good school in your house, but they don't know you.
Right.
So you're telling me everything you're doing is for them. You just need to be Uncle Larry. Like they see you on holidays and it's almost like y'all on child custody. Every other weekend you pop in. Right. But they'll tell you everything they're doing. No, it's for them. It's for them. You'll hear a lot of wives who will say stuff to where their husband works all the time and he pays all the bills, but he's not very affectionate. He's not home much and she's unhappy. Mm-hmm. And his response is, I'm doing all this for you. You're ungrateful. I pay all the bills. You don't have to work. I'm doing this. Okay, well, that's not what's playing out. So if you're saying everything you're doing is for her and your kids or for the family structure, whatever, the way you're going about this, that's not what's happening. She's ready to divorce you. Your kids don't really know you. Mm-hmm. So your family can't be first. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like that tunnel vision, sometimes we're just like, no, that's this. Sometimes we have to step back and say, okay, we got to start looking at this differently. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We have to start looking at some of the stuff that's going on because, like I said, the reason why we get into something may not be where we end up.
Which is why your steps are important to continue to repeat.
And the self-awareness of, okay, what I had an opportunity to either stay home with the kids or go out of. Was it really necessary for me to be the one to go? No, but I wanted to look good in front of these people. I wanted to be the one to present this. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be the one that was that guy or that girl. I could have stayed home with the family. I could have. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to be there. So I was there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Your family wasn't first in that decision. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, you're right. You're right. And I think that, it goes back to, this is still on point with your initial steps about you can't just you got to rework the plan, right? Yeah. Like you got to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. Like I said, the premise is not about taking your eyes off the goal per se. Sometimes it's just the information changes situations. We came up with the idea based upon what we knew at the time we came up with the plan.
Yep. Yep.
New information happens, situations that changes, more opportunities, more variables that kick in. We just, like I said, let's rethink this.
Yeah.
We came at this with 2015 eyes. That's when we started on this mission.
Right.
A lot has happened since 2015.
Right.
We're off the mark for the plan, but it's like, let's incorporate. Nobody was thinking about Zoom in 2015.
No.
But we don't use it. Okay, so maybe we need to put Zoom in the implementation.
Yeah.
We need to put this in. We're still the same goal, but we may need to alter those steps a little bit.
Yes.
You know, our kids is on other stuff. The way we raised them up in 2012, 2013, they on different stuff now.
Yep.
Interaction with them may look differently in 2020 than it did 2017.
Yep.
We still love our kids, but the way we love them and interact with them may need to be different.
Yes.
You know, so it's not about abandoning the dream. Sometimes just re-examining the steps.
Don't abandon the dream. Re-examine the
leave
steps.
no dream behind.
I love that. I always love talking to you. I could talk to you all day, which is why I ask you to come on every month.
Yeah.
So Jermaine, quickly talk about your program. You mentioned it a little bit, but just talk about what.
So I work as a coaching consultant using it's extreme execution coaching based upon a DISC assessment. That's a lot of words to say. That it's basically a personality / kind of behavioral test that gauges an individual's natural and adaptive preference, like how your natural preference, not necessarily in stone, but how you deal with problems, people, pace, and procedure. So we all have it. It gauges who we are in our natural, like left to our own devices, who we would be when we're just us, and then our adaptive, who we become in the presence of others when we're aware of others or become pressured or stressed. And so what that helps do is it shows, okay, do I lean into my strengths? Do I lean out of them? Communication style. So it's the test. It comes with a 23-page report about you. So it's like a workbook on you. Then we do an initial consultation. Then we put together a plan of action based upon what you want to do with your life. So I'm almost like a personal trainer. You tell me what the goals you want are. We give you the task to go through the consultation and put some steps together to get you to where it is you want to get to.
That's good. With what you do, you kind of mentioned a little bit. Sometimes you're in environments, maybe because you think society says you should be there, or your parents say you should be there, but really understanding, because we're all different. Like me and my husband, we're like two different people. Yeah. I thrive in community. He reverts in community, right? Like that's just not what he does. And not knowing that or trying to figure out how to start, maybe it's like you don't need a therapist, but maybe like if you had a test to see and you have like more concrete, like
it gives you actual
like that.
And
and what I've noticed, like some of my people, like some of my clients are very more like my engineers. I struggle working with them, the way their brain works. They need that concrete, and I think some people need more of that concrete, like okay, this is what it is, and so like that's why I think it's really good what you do.
Yeah, the people who work with me, I gave the test to the guys that work with me, and we've been working together for years. And I learned, like in that dynamic, that I was the problem. Like I gave the test, I took it, I gave it to them. What I found is that we're very similar in certain ways. I think that's why we get along so well. What I learned is that as a natural pace, I'm slow. Like I have a slower pace to things. And based upon them, they're really good at taking instruction. So they worked at the speed that I worked. Once I found out that they're faster, like their natural state and how they work and do things is way quicker than me, but they fell in line with the way I do things. That's all the difference. The very next project we had, I left them alone. And they was done like a third of the time it always takes them to get stuff finished.
That's so
like, interesting. The whole time you could have been done. Like I said, oh, I was in the way? Okay. And family structure, I gave it to my brothers. And I started finding the gaps in how we communicate with one another. You know, there's some of us are in alignment, which is why we kind of click together, whereas others not so much. And then it made sense in behavior. I gave it to my brother and also to my nephew, his son. And then we had a whole breakdown of the dynamic between them on some of the conflicts. I was like, I bet y'all argue about this, right? He's like, man, exactly. Like it was just, the way y'all were talking. It's very eye-opening and helpful.
Oh, that's awesome. And if people want to reach out to you, how would they do that?
For the test specifically, I just say where are we at? Team Effort Program at Gmail. TEAMEFFORT program, PROGRAM at gmail.com. Or they can just find me directly every social media platform, Twitter, Instagram, Snap, YouTube, everything is at J Morris CEO.
And for everybody listening to this on the audio, you can find that information in the show notes.
Yeah.
Jermaine, thank you. It's always a blast.
Maybe next time we'll talk
about the. Yeah, so just for the audience, you know, he comes on a few minutes before, maybe like 5. Today we came on like 5 minutes before I went live, and I was like, all right, what are we talking about? We literally do not plan what we do.
Yeah, not like show prep going on.
It's very authentic because we're in alignment in a lot of ways. So thank you so much. I appreciate you and everything that you do.
I appreciate you having me. I love what you do on the show. Very helpful.
Thank you. And you guys know Jermaine will be back. He's a regular now. Bye. 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 That was awesome. So it's Friday, which means I won't be back till Monday. And so June, when's the end of the month? So July, so I won't be here for the whole month of July. I'm taking July off. So June 30th is my last day. Just for right now. You're welcome, Sarah. Thank you for being here. So June 30th is my last day, but there's over 200 episodes that you all can listen to for the month of July while I'm off, and I'll be back in August. Yeah. So I'm excited. I already know I'm gonna miss y'all so much because that's just how I am. As soon as week 1 starts, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I miss podcasting because I really enjoy doing this. I get to talk to really amazing people. I'm really lucky. So if anything that we talked about today kind of resonated for you, don't let this be the last time you think about like creating changes. You can start today. It doesn't have, like you said, if you say like, oh, Monday's a day that I like create these changes, like you can do it today. Like you can start today. You just got to be intentional about the process. Thank you, Todd. I will. You just got to be really intentional about the process. Like that's what's the key. Is the oven on? It smells like something's burning. Sorry.
That's the popcorn.
Oh, okay, popcorn. So love you guys so much. If you want to follow me on, thank you. If you want to follow me on social media, you can follow me everywhere. Celeste the Therapist. You can follow me everywhere, or you can go to my website and find me, celestetherapist.com. You want to say hi? Bella's like all up in my face, so go ahead, say hi.
Hi.
She wants to be a guest on the show. I told her one day I'll get another computer and she could be a guest. What would you talk about? We're gonna feel like Bob Wally. What do you want to talk about on the show? All right, well, we'll figure it out, right? Okay, we'll figure it out. She'll come on and be a guest one day. We'll be tracking you down. You Todd. All right. Hi, Sarah says hi. Everyone says hi. Everybody knows Bella. You guys been around from my Periscope days when she would always come on when she was little. Now she's like a big girl. All right. Love you guys. I'll be back Monday. Have a great weekend.
Life that I care about and love, but wait. Maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste the